Welcome to part 2 of the Munich to Amsterdam full flight video. Before the video starts, I have to apologize for the bad audio quality. Sadly, I recorded this video before I got my hands on a new microphone and a new editing software, so the audio quality isn't the best. I hope you can still enjoy it, and I promise that the next videos on this channel will be with much better audio and visual quality than this one. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so we're standing at the edge of the runway, ready for departure, and I'm gonna quickly check and set everything up. Transponders set, traffic is being displayed, and my steer lights.
Okay, the cabin is secured. Have a good flight.
And the clock is running. Alright. So we're ready for takeoff. And we're going to taxi into position. Check that there's no other airplanes coming. And off we go. So the 737-700 is an airplane that can take off on fairly short runways. As I already said, we should not have any issues whatsoever concerning the takeoff on this 4,000 meter runway here at Munich. But better safe than sorry. In order to get our airplane to rev up to the full power that we want, what I'm going to do, just step on the brakes and increase power to 40%. And once we hit that, and the engines are stabilized, I'm going to engage the auto throttle and release the brakes. I'm going to hold my stick forward for the first few seconds until we've accelerated to approximately 80 knots, which should happen right about now. Airspeed's live, and
80
knots. And my stick goes to the neutral position now. That's just so that my nose gear stays on the ground and the airplane is a bit more steerable for the first 80 knots.
V1, rotate.
And once we hit the rotate speed, I'm just going to slightly pull back on the stick very slowly and increase the airplane's pitch
Positive
attitude.
rate.
Gear up until we're flying off the ground. Then we're going to increase the pitch attitude to an approximate 15
400.
degrees. Now that my gear is up,
1000.
I'm at 1,000 feet. The autopilot and start retracting the flaps. After takeoff, my gear is up and off. My flaps are retracted step by step. Autopilot is set and engaged, and we've got VNAV and LNAV engaged. Air conditioning and pressurization should be working. Yep, pressurization is working. Gear is up, and continue to retract the flaps. Alright. So, I've retracted my flaps fully, and I'm now in the climb phase. Auto braking off, engine start switches are in off, and now I'm going to wait till we climb to 10,000 feet. So today we'll be climbing to a cruising altitude of approximately 30,000 feet, which is known as flight level 300 in aviation speak. This means that we'll be climbing to an altitude of approximately 9 kilometers or 9,000 meters. In aviation, feet and knots are used and nautical miles as the units. That's just standardized because it allows aviators all around the world to communicate in the same numbers. Alright. So, once we pass 10,000 feet, we'll no longer have a speed restriction of 250 knots. And instead, we'll be okay to climb at a higher speed. This airplane is capable of flying at Mach 0.7 in cruise, which is about 70% of the speed of sound, or about 400 miles per hour, or 800 to 900 kilometers per hour, depending on the weather and the aircraft's performance. We're currently climbing at about 2,600 feet per minute, so we'll be reaching our cruising altitude fairly soon. We've just passed 10,000 feet, so I'm going to turn off the landing lights. Landing lights are left on until about 10,000 feet in order to deter birds and steer them away from the airplane. And at about 10,000 feet, I'm going to turn off the seatbelt sign so that our passengers may now move about the cabin freely, go to the toilet, and do whatever they feel the need to do. So during the rest of the cruise phase, the pilot's job is to monitor what the airplane is doing. He's going to check on the engines, he's going to check on the navigation, of course he's going to check on the passengers and inform them about what is happening at the moment, and he's going to make sure that the route is being followed correctly. Currently we're turning towards the final waypoint of our departure, input, and we're continuing to climb, whilst we're accelerating to a slightly higher climb speed. All of those things, such as speed and navigation, are calculated by the FMC, which is this little computer down here, which I programmed earlier. It's kind of the heart of the airplane's computer systems, as it works ensuring that the airplane is always flying along the intended route and at the optimum altitude and airspeed for maximum efficiency and, well, maximum speed towards our destination. In general, the 737 is a fairly slow airplane compared to other airplanes of its class, and even more so compared to long-haul airplanes meant for longer routes than the 737. This is because back in the day when the 737 was developed, the 1960s, jet airplanes were just generally much faster than most other planes available for medium-range routes at the time. As the 737 is just intended to fly on domestic or short routes between two states, flying, for example, in Europe or flying across North America, people thought that as this plane is so much faster than any other plane that was flying on those routes in the 1960s, it really wouldn't need that much airspeed. As more modern jets evolved, this has made the 737 a little slow compared to its competitors, but it still remains a valid jet aircraft. Especially the newer variants, like the 737NG, which is the current generation that we're flying at the moment, are well equipped. And in fact, this is an airplane that is well suited to modern markets. Alright, So now we've pulled off at our cruising altitude, and we're just following our route as we followed it. Now we've got to monitor the weather along the way, as we've got a weather radar. That's fairly easy. You can see these green spots with a tiny speck of yellow in the middle. Those are rain clouds. And well, if that yellow turns to red or there's heavier rain around the area, the more close to red the color gets, the heavier the rain is. We're gonna have to just slightly divert around it, but that's not the case yet, so we're all good for the moment. So no diversions. Instead, we're just gonna follow our route and start preparing our arrival. So the thing is that we've got to set up our approach. We're going to be doing an ILS approach, probably, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the speed. We're going to be flying at flaps 40 and a landing speed of 137 knots. After that's set up, I'm going to check the approach charts, and then I'll prepare my approach. So currently, the weather in Amsterdam is not the best, but it's not the worst either. There's low clouds with low visibility, but other than that, the weather should be okay for landing. The wind is not too heavy, and it's coming more or less straight down the runway, so we don't have to worry about crosswind a lot. This means that what we can do is plan the ILS approach for runway 36 right, which is currently the active landing runway at Amsterdam. I'm just going to take a quick look at the charts for Amsterdam, and then I'm going to work on plugging that approach all the way into the airplane's systems. Alright, so as we've got those rain clouds up ahead, I'm going to just quickly turn on some of my anti-ice equipment so ice doesn't form on our aircraft's wings once we fly through the cloud. Alright, so we've been asked to contact air traffic control. I'm going to contact VATSIM air traffic control in a second here, and just so you know, I'll probably not be talking a lot about the flight now because I'll be concentrating on contacting air traffic control and correctly talking with them. So I'll see you again once we're getting ready for landing.
Langham Radar, very good afternoon. Emirates 23, have you with you flight level 380?
Emirates 23, Langham Radar, hello, identified.
Langen Radar, KLM 17906. Good day.
KLM 17906, KLM 17906, Langham Radar, good afternoon, radar contact flight level 300, continue as filed.
Continue as filed, KLM 17906.
KLM 17906, contact Bremen 128.75, bye-bye.
128.75 for KLM 17906. Thanks for the service. Guten Abend noch. Alright, so
Lufthansa 4 Whiskey, descent altitude 4000 feet, QNH 1002.
4000 QNH 1002.
we just received a handoff. That is, that we were sent to the next frequency for our flight, and we're going to contact a new air traffic controller who is in charge of the sector that we're just flying into. Bremen Radar, KLM 1796, guten Nachmittag.
KLM 1796 Bremen, hello, identified.
Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plan the descent. Now my flight management computer, the FMC down here, has already presented me with a top of descent, but I'm gonna have to modify that information a bit by adding in my arrival to Amsterdam. So the arrival runway will be 36 right, so we're going to select the ILS approach for runway 36 right, and the arrival should be one of the two Norku arrivals, as the starting waypoint of our arrival procedure is Norku. And now we can select Nork 2 Alpha, which is our current arrival, and we can select a transition, and we are going to select our tip as our initial waypoint. That's not going to matter too much, as we are most likely just going to be vectored in, but it may matter due to the fact that we might have to fly the arrival. But anyway, we're just going to follow the route and then contact tower once we're close to Amsterdam. Now the next thing I want to do is wait until I'll be cleared for the descent by the air traffic controller, and then I can just follow my descent. Alright, so as this frequency seems to be a little less active as the last one, I'm just going to give you a bit more information
Lufthansa 50 7725, tschüss.
about the flight and what's going to happen during the remainder of the flight.
Langen 17.75. Vielen Dank fürs Abnehmen. Lufthansa 50
Yeah. 5079 confirm 327.725.
Correct. Frequency 17.25. Lufthansa 579.
Sorry about that, but when I talked about it being less congested than the previous one, it immediately got a little more congested. Perfectly. So, right ahead, by the way, you can see a small airplane or some other airplane in the distance, but he's probably cruising a lot higher than we are currently, so that shouldn't be an issue. Anyway, we're currently cruising along at flight level 300 and Mach 0.771, so 77% of the speed of sound, which corresponds roughly to a ground speed of 478 knots, which should surpass 500 miles per hour, which is very fast, at least in non-airplane terms. For an airplane, well, we could be faster, but we're pretty fast anyways, currently, so we'll be arriving shortly. In fact, the first thing that we're going to do in just a few seconds is start our descent. We're currently approaching our top of descent waypoint, which is the point where we start our descent here.